Side projects, the bane of every programmer's existence. Maybe you're working on a big project, or maybe you're just, researching. And then you think, well, you know what? I should try making a side project. Big mistake. You find yourself getting so distracted by this small project. It's fun, it's always exciting starting something new, but then you look back and that original main project you were working on slowly fades away into the bleak, black void of unfinished games. I'm gonna take you on a journey and show you how I almost gave up on my indie game, and I'm gonna show you some of the mistakes that I made along the way. So buckle up, grab some popcorn, and get ready. Our story begins in the summer of 2019. At the time, I was working on Wizbirds, a bird-themed MMORPG that uses magic for the combat. I've actually made a whole video on it that you can check out here. And I was interested to try something a little bit different. I kind of got bored working on an MMO, especially because the project just lasts forever. And I was thinking, what could be something kind of small that I could dig my teeth into? I had never created a mobile game before, so I thought, why don't I try making something like that and put it on the Google Play Store? And that way it would also keep my game pretty simple, because this was a side project after all. So I played around with some concepts of some mobile games I can make, and I thought about making a Japanese learning app. It would be cool if I could make something that I would use. That way if no one else played it, at least I would get some use out of it. Also, for some reason, I had this idea of making it frog themed. I have no idea why. I don't know if I was reading stuff about frogs at the time, but I just knew I had to make it a core mechanic of the game somehow. So there I was. I had a game, I had a platform that I wanted to release it on, and a theme, and I was ready to start my first mobile project. Now, the first mistake that I made on the project, I made an unrealistic timeline. And I'm sure that many of you have done this before. You think that a project may only take you a couple days or a week, and ends up taking you a month or half a year. And this is because games have a lot of nuances to them. There's little details that you really don't know what's gonna happen, especially when it's something new, like releasing it, to like mobile or something. So I don't know what I was thinking when I created the timeline, but I thought I can make this game in a matter of 3 days. Well, obviously I was horribly wrong, and the game actually didn't end up getting released for another 3 months afterwards. So my first piece of advice for you indie devs out there is to double the length of your timeline. If you think it's gonna take a week, it's probably gonna take 2 or 3. And doing that makes it more realistic, and you lose less motivation because you're actually sticking to your timeline. It's the worst feeling when you're trying to make a game in 3 days and you publish it 3 months later. You'll end up losing motivation for the project, which kinda ended up happening to me, which you'll see shortly. The second issue that I had is that I had the bright idea of using a new game engine. Now, it's unheard of to try a new game engine, and especially during a game jam, but that's normally when you have a limited time frame. Now, when you're making a title for yourself, you tend to get really relaxed and think, you know what, I have time. What harm is it if I work in the game another day, which turns into another day and another day. And at the time I was only using Construct, and I wanted to learn Godot. So I thought, why not try to make this game in Godot? Now, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I actually use Godot as my primary game engine. But at the time, I don't know why, my brain just could not understand or handle it. So I spent the first couple days making artwork and just struggling to make basic movement, and ended up getting really discouraged and wasting so much of my time. So after a week in the project, already way past my deadline, I realized I probably should be using a game engine I'm familiar with, especially because this is a side project. So I scrapped all the progress that I made in Godot and decided to restart using Construct. I was able to actually mock up a version of the game in Construct in a matter of 2 or 3 days. And this is what I call the infatuation period of a project. When you first start out, you make that clean slate and you're adding stuff, and you see all this progress from having a white screen to having people move around and controls and all this artwork. And I was just having a blast. Now, that infatuation period doesn't last forever, and unfortunately, after a week or so of working on the game, I started to just really lose interest. The game was at a good place. It was getting close to being done. You were able to practice both hiragana and katakana. Your frog slid around and interacted. I even made it so that your frog had cute hats that you could switch in between, because why not? So the game was at a really good place, but I made one huge mistake that would cause me a 2-month delay. And that was putting aside all the hard stuff until the end. Endless amounts of menus, music, sound effects, saving features, all these things that you would think are primary mechanics to an application, I waited until last minute. And I don't know about you, but I don't find that stuff very interesting, and I'm a graphic designer by trade. I literally design for a living. But when it comes to making a game, it's so boring. So my second piece of advice is trying to tackle the most difficult stuff in a project when you're still in that infatuation phase. It's a lot easier to tackle things like saving or menus when you're still really excited about the project. 2 months later, I was getting restless again. I wanted to work on something small, and I was toying around a few other ideas. The problem was I was miserable. I was trying to think of a new game idea, but I was still haunted by the fact that I didn't finish my last game. So I called up my brother, who's a professional animator and game dev himself, and he gave me a great piece of advice. Basically, he said that I was gonna get stuck in a loop of never finishing games unless I actually finished games. Now, I know this isn't like any groundbreaking piece of advice, but for me, it was really profound in the moment, because it meant I had to pick up a project that I had no passion, I had no energy for, and I had to finish it. Because working and starting on these new projects, it was gonna have the same result if I never actually had the discipline to finish something. Well, my third piece of advice is that you have to finish games in order to make new games. If you have these big projects looming over your head that you're not finishing, you're gonna fight insecurity because you think, how am I gonna finish this if I can't even finish these smaller projects? So I really encourage you to push through even when it's hard, because that's the only way you're gonna continue to create games. So after that phone call, I sat down and I continued to work on my game. Now here's the thing, it wasn't like I magically got motivation. I still didn't really feel like working on it, but it was beyond that. It wasn't just about, oh, I'm making a game because it's fun. It was about, I need to finish this to prove to myself that I can. And I was able to wrap up the project in less than a week. I went through the process of uploading it on the Google Play Store, which is a whole journey in itself. But when I finally did it and all said and done, I was really proud of my accomplishment. So for those of you that are getting discouraged about your projects, or maybe you're losing motivation, I really encourage you to give your project a second chance. I encourage you to have good timelines. Think about realistically how long it's going to take. Also, try not to jump from side project to side project, as tempting as it is. You'll realize that over time that you'll kind of cherish your game more and more. Now, if you have an Android and you have an interest in Japanese, make sure to check out Kana Pond. I put a link in the description below. Also, if you have any extra helpful thoughts or questions about this video, please leave a comment below. I'm always looking for helpful advice on how I can stay motivated with my projects, especially for my current project, Dewdrop Dynasty, which is a bug-themed Metroidvania that I've been working on for the past year or so. So thanks so much for watching this video. If you'd like to stay up to date with me, make sure to subscribe or follow me on Twitter. Stay tuned for more devlogs and game-related videos. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.